Hey everybody, it is Blonde Blitz time. Let's go. Hey everybody, I'm your host, Deb Whitcas. Welcome to the Blonde Blitz. Week 11 had some wild last-minute upsets. We will talk about those as well as Week 12 on today's show. It's salute for service right now in the NFL, and Nate Boyer, former Green Beret and long snapper for the Seahawks, is here to talk about his career in both the NFL and the military, and how he combined the two things as the founder of Emerging Vets and Players nonprofit. He will also join me for Week 12 hot takes. Week 11 hot takes. As far as the rest of the show, comedian Tom Dorham is back with some Week 11 funny. HGTV designer to the athletes, Shay Holland. We know her well. She joins us to talk about home security systems in the recent wake of robberies at Travis Kelce's and Patrick Mahomes' houses. Sports betting expert Alex White is here. She gives her best bet for Week 12, and Commissioner Cooper gives us his take on fantasy for Week 12. Finally, Ben Troop, former tight end from the Bucs and the Titans, is here to help me with Week 12 picks. All right, guys, let's get it started up in here. We're skipping headlines once again and getting right to it with hot takes for Week 11. As I said in the intro, it is salute for service right now in the NFL. And my special guest this week is not only an NFL vet, he's also a military veteran. And he found a way to combine the two for a good cause. His nonprofit is called Emerging Vets and Players, also called MVP. And he's here to talk all about it. But first, we're going to get his thoughts about last week's games with hot takes. Everybody, former long snapper for the Seahawks, Nate Boyer. Hey, Nate.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited you're here. First of all, I have to tell you, so my dad was an athlete, first of all.
Okay.
He didn't play football. He played minors for the Phillies, so MLB. And he was also in the Army.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So I'm so blessed and was so excited when I got the email that you were available to do the show. It really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Of course. That's awesome. Well, thank him too.
Yeah. He's actually buried in a veteran cemetery too. So I know he's looking down, he's smiling. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And we just had Veterans Day and everything.
Yes.
That's very cool. Well, you're lucky to have him. That's super awesome.
Yes, thank you for your service. Thank you to everyone for their service as well who's been in the military. So let's talk some football, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So your former team, the Seahawks, last week, Geno Smith led the Seahawks to it was a thrilling comeback victory over the 49ers. Let's be honest. Right?
I grew up a 49ers fan, I guess.
Oh, so were you a little conflicted
I was
here?
there at the game, so I was very conflicted. But I love, I think Geno's a heck of a player. I love John Schneider. He's the GM there. Still good buddies. And, obviously I played for Pete Carroll, so different regime. But right. I think Tyler Lockett is about the only player still on the team from when I had my very brief run with the Seahawks. But anyway, but I do pull for the Seahawks. I pull for both, which is weird because they're rivals in the same division,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It is.
Do you think we're going to see more from the Seahawks?
Both those teams, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think right now Seahawks, or I guess the Cardinals have the edge in the division, but the Seahawks and Niners are both one game back. And but also a couple games back of the wild card. So they're going to have to win a lot of these games down the stretch. I think both teams have to hit at least 10, maybe 11 to get in there. So, for the Seahawks, I think they're going to continue to do that. Yeah, I actually do. because they have, some of that senior leadership. They do have some great weapons, obviously, receiver DK Metcalf as well, too. Defense is playing. I mean, they played the 49ers that's a great offensive team, and they scored 17 points. You know what I mean? So there's no reason to say no that they won't, or to see why not. And I don't know. Gino's like one of these guys that kind of got a late start like me. Obviously, Gino's an elite quarterback, unlike me. And it's just cool to see him sort of have his moment now. So, I think there's certainly a chance for that.
How about the 49ers? I didn't know you were a fan. Let's talk about them too. I mean, the injuries have been just killing them.
And now out. And such a heartbreaking end of the season last year. You lose the Super Bowl in overtime to the second time you lost to the Chiefs in 4 years in the Super Bowl. And it's like, you're thinking, all right, we've been through it. Like the worst is over. This is definitely going to be our year. And then Caffrey's out. Yeah. And then, you're
he's back now at least.
He's back now, but then Debo's hurt. And then Debo comes back. And then Bosa's now hurt.
Yep.
And it's just like, Ayuk's out for the year. It just seems like endless, but they still have a lot of talent. George Kittle didn't play last week either.
Yeah.
So they've still got a ton of talent, and you never know. The defense keeps them in games. You know what I mean? Really? So if they can get healthy, but they've got to win at least 5 of the last 7, if not 6, to get in. So that's and their schedule's nuts. They still have Green Bay, the Lions. They got to play Arizona again. They got to play the Rams again, and probably win both of those games if they want any shot. And then there's another one in there that's just like the Bills. They got to play the Bills too. Their schedule is rough. It's rough.
That's rough. Well, another team that's facing a rough schedule and just having a rough year, the Bears. That walk-off loss to Green Bay, the Packers won on a blocked field goal 20-19. Tough. What do you think went wrong this time?
Well, the kick was too low.
Yes.
It was a great play. You got to give the Packers special teams credit, that D tackle that got through and got his paw up. That was a great play to end. I mean, that's tough. That feels like a lot of seasons out there right now where it's just, you're kind of losing at the end of games. It's hard that game against Washington.
Hour too. The whole witching hour before, the fourth quarter, like that. Yeah. Last minute.
I mean, wasn't it? It was Washington, right? That beat them on the Hail Mary.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's
Daniels threw that Hail Mary.
Those things start to gut you when you're losing all these games at the end down at the end of the wire. But it's a rookie quarterback. He might have started off a little rocky, but he's looked pretty good. Super talented. And so, I mean, it's hard to say. What are they at now? What are they sitting at record wise? Are they 5-5 as well?
Or something like that. I don't have that.
Maybe 5-6. Yeah, it's tough, but that division's so good.
The division is so good. Division. Yeah. We'll see what happens with the Bears. Yeah. A lot of I always send positive vibes because my Chicago peeps, want them to win every year.
Oh, they're diehard. That's a great fan base. I have a Walter Payton T-shirt that I wear all the time. It just says sweetness on it.
Oh, nice.
I got a lot of love for him. So
awesome. Well, another team, the Kansas City Chiefs, they suffered their first loss of the season. I mean, so here's my question to you. Do you think they're as good as fans think they are? Or do they just expect – it's KC, like you just expect them to win?
Yeah, and I think that the other teams feel that way too. And that's hard. It's hard to go into a game feeling like this team just knows how to win. Even if they don't put up big numbers and stats, they just seem to, they didn't this week, but they seem to just finish and close games out, including Super Bowls. And that's a huge testament to Coach Reed and obviously Patrick Mahomes and the rest of that team. I mean, they're very talented, but it's got to be a culture thing to me and just a coaching thing and a belief, I mean, when you got to give yourself reasons to believe. And when you win a lot, you just believe. And the Patriots were like that for years, and now they're kind of the new Patriots. So it's like you play against them. Mm-hmm. People may not want to admit it, but they probably have this feeling of like, we're probably going to lose today. And you go into a game with that mentality and it makes it that much harder to win.
That's interesting that you say that because I feel like Patrick Mahomes he's not having a normal Patrick Mahomes season, but they're somehow figuring out a way to win, except for last week.
Yeah. I mean, but he turns it up when he needs to turn it up. And it's not that he's not trying the other times, but like he just does what it takes to get it done and find a way. They just always find a way, almost always find a way to win. And they're doing just fine. They're 9-1 now,
Exactly.
But of course, getting that late in the year, it's almost like you're watching a pitcher throw a perfect game, and he gets into the 6th inning and you're like, ooh, and then he finally gives up a hit and you're like, oh, never mind. Like, cool, great, still a great game / great season, but like, we're always wondering if that's going to be replicated. The Pats were super close, decade or so ago, when they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl after going undefeated, and 72 Dolphins still.
Yep. And actually, our comedian Todd Durham, he actually talks about the 72 Dolphins later on today in the segment. And so I love that you just brought that up. Well, moving on to another team that had a great game, the Broncos. They shocked everybody, I think, by dismantling the Falcons 38-6. Oh, Kirk Cousins, right?
I mean, it happens, but man, that was a rough one.
It was brutal to watch. I love Kirk Cousins. Do we think that Michael Penix should stay in?
I mean, no, you know what I mean? Like, look, I look at it in these terms. Like, I'm a Texas Longhorn, and right now we've got Quinn Ewers, who's a great quarterback and having a pretty damn good year. And then we've got Arch Manning, where that everybody's excited about. He's obviously a Manning, but also he's extremely talented. I mean, he can throw the ball over the yard, he can run. And a lot of people will hit me up and be like, why isn't Arch playing? I'm like, his time will come. He's in a good spot right now. He's learning. Mm-hmm. And I mean, either way, Penix being behind someone like Kirk Cousins, who's a great leader, and Kirk,
and a great guy too, I have to say.
A great guy. And Kirk came in, he was a mid-round draft pick. He was not supposed to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He was supposed to back up RG3. Mm-hmm. And then, he went on to have a really good career. And so, and they started the season so well. They started out and everyone was like, whoa, okay. And then they're starting to slide.
Atlanta deserved it too. The fans in Atlanta, they deserved a good. And they have such a good team. He has so many weapons around him. I was like, yes, finally Atlanta. There's something special going on here.
Yeah.
To see that game, 38-6. Whew. Anyway.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's demoralizing when it does, and it's like you just like go back and try to figure out like what happened? Where did we go wrong? How did this, this seemingly it's not a walk-in win, but the Broncos record's not bad. But still, they haven't played a game like that where they just wrecked somebody,
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is playing solid.
He looks great. He looks great.
Really good.
But no, I don't think you do that. And I think Penix only came in. He only threw a few passes. Like it's not like he came in and had this exceptional appearance and he brought them back at all. That was the issue with Quinn and with Arch Manning. It's like Arch would come in and throw like 2 touchdown passes and make some miracle play. People were like, ooh, and it's like in mop-up duty, but it's like people are like, should we play him? So anyway.
Right. Well, talking about benching quarterbacks, the Giants just benched Daniel Jones and is now starting Tommy DeVito. Is this the right move?
Well, I mean, the season's over. I think they're 2 or 3 wins, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So what are you going to do? Like they're probably going to draft somebody, I would guess. I don't know, but that's probably what they're thinking about doing anyway. I don't think that they think Tommy DeVito is the quarterback of the future for the New York Giants,
right?
But maybe for the immediate. And last year it was fun, when he came in, they got butts in the seats. People were watching. It wasn't Taylor Swift level, but it kind of brought in a little bit of a different audience. It went, he was social media famous for a few weeks and he had a couple good games, including like a comeback win. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. And I like Daniel Jones a lot. Speaking about good people, he's a good person. But at the same time, what do? You got to do something, and coaches are trying to keep their jobs. There's a lot that goes into this. So I think it makes sense.
Okay. Well, talking about coaches keeping their jobs, the Jets just fired GM Joe Douglas. They fired head coach Robert Saleh a few weeks ago. Do you think this will make a difference at all? or who's to blame here?
In the season, no.
Okay.
I don't know. It's wild. I really thought they were going to be a genuine contender this year.
I thought we all did. I did too. I absolutely did. I was excited to see Aaron Rodgers after last season, and he got hurt 75 seconds into the first game of the season. I was crushed, and I'm not even an Aaron Rodgers fan. So for him this season to come, and then I love Sauce Gardner too. I think the defense I thought was going to be pretty legit. They've done okay, but yeah, I just want to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens though. When you lose, like changes are made. It just happens. It is kind of interesting to me that, that's a tough one. I feel bad for Robert Saleh now because it's like he was probably let go by the GM, and then now the GM's let go anyway, and it's like it's a tough one. But it seemed like there was some friction there anyway with Aaron and Coach Saleh, and who knows? I don't know. I mean, Aaron's towards the end of his career here. It's like probably another year or two. That's about it. So. I know he's disappointed. I mean, he's probably happy to be playing again and get reps in, but I don't know. I wonder if it's coming from there. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No. And some people are saying, "Oh, Aaron should retire after the season if the Jets don't bring him back," which there's debating whether or not the Jets will or they won't. Or it's all up in the air.
I mean, he's got to come back and play. Well, he can't end this. He can't end like this. Oh, even if they don't, make a Super Bowl run next year, if he's got to at least get in the playoffs one more time. Right. They got to.
It's Aaron Rodgers. Has to. Well, let's move on to your football career. I'm excited to talk about this. I ask everybody who comes on the show this first question: why football?
Sorry, I'm making an adjustment because I'm trying. The sun is moving.
The sun is moving.
It's driving me insane. Let me see if I can.
There we go.
Fix this. Give me 1 minute. That's better, right?
That's better. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I'm diffusing it all. Okay, sorry. One more time.
No, I said, why football? I ask everyone who comes on the show. I always start out with this question.
It's the best sport in the world. I don't know. I love football. I grew up loving it. I grew up in the Bay Area. That's why I'm a 49ers fan. And when I was a kid, it was Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, just Dwight Clark, these legends, and they won 5 Super Bowls from the year I was born until I was like 13. So it was super cool to be around that and see that. Didn't play growing up and regretted it. Played other sports. Part of it was I was a bit of a late bloomer, and then I got so into baseball and basketball and things like that. I just thought, well, I don't want to get cut or lose my starting spot in those sports. So maybe football is just not meant for me, and I'm just meant to be a fan. But I don't know when this occurred, but it kind of took over as America's sport, over baseball. I'm not sure what.
Somewhere in the 90s, I feel like it happened, right? Because I like I said, I grew up a baseball fan. That's my first love, and then it just switched to football too. So I'm not sure. I mean,
that makes sense. You look at some of the brands that like the Niners, the Cowboys. The Cowboys brand really was built in the early 90s with with Aikman, Irvin, and Emmett. So maybe that's part of it. It'll also, we love our violence, and it is a rough sport, So
not as rough as hockey, though.
What's that?
Not as rough as hockey, though. I feel
that's true. Hockey's tough though, because at least on the TV, it's hard to follow that dang puck. You really got to know the game. True. It just moves so fast. So it's for me. I love going to hockey games, but it's harder for me to watch on TV. Although football has a lot of stoppage and play, that's their big complaint. But I think that was it. Like all the viewership, TV. Baseball is a slow game. It's a great game, but it's slow, and it just kind of lost that luster. So I think that's it. But yeah, for me, it was just being around. I think being in a place where that was the team. Growing up, the Warriors were my basketball team. The San Francisco Giants were my baseball team. Mm-hmm. And as a child, anyway, they didn't win any championships. They've won them later. But it was the Niners. It was the Niners that were winning championships, and so that just hooked me in early. And I didn't play till I was 29, but I was a fan from when I was like 3. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that kind of brings me to my next question. You had an interesting road to football. It wasn't a typical one. You served 6 years in the Army, multiple tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And then you played college ball, as you said before, for the University of Texas. as a walk-on, right?
Yep.
And you had never played it down in your life. You were just a fan. What made you do the Army first?
Well, I was 20 in my early 20s when I joined. 9/11 happened when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
That wasn't the sole reason, but it definitely got me thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go to college after high school. I didn't really know what my path was. I didn't have like a specific idea of what I was going to do with my life or who I was going to be. I just loved, like I said, I love sports and I wasn't playing them at that point. So I just was kind of drifting in the Army and the military just made sense for me. Obviously it's a job with great purpose and sacrifice and all of those things. It was very honorable. And I did want to be a part of something like that because I hadn't been. But also I needed structure. I didn't really, I think I couldn't verbalize that. If you asked me at the time, what do you need? But that's what I needed. I needed discipline. And I needed that because I had it growing up and then I lost it after leaving the nest, and kind of went off on my own.
Yeah.
It totally happens. And I had a great time. I don't regret all of it, but I still I didn't feel like I had a sense of purpose and like that I made much of a difference in the world. And that's not a good feeling. Nobody wants to feel that. Like we all want to feel like whatever we do, it's at least impacting somebody, making somebody's day brighter and, making somebody smile or feel like they belong. And that helps us feel like we belong and all that stuff. And I just didn't have that. So the military I was at this point in my life where it was like, I'd thought about it several times and it was, we were already in the Middle East and the surge was going on. Mm-hmm. And it just made sense for me. And it was great. I got so much out of it. I think, whenever people ask me that, like, would you do it again? I totally would, knowing what I know now. There was a lot of value in it and so much. Yeah, just learning how to not quit is kind of an interesting thing. Like I feel
like that brings that back to kind of football too, with the you never quit, never give up, that athlete mentality, right?
Yeah.
When you were done with the Army, you played in college, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You played football in college. What meant, okay, now I'm going to play football. Like you'd never played, you're playing with guys who probably played since they were 3 years old.
Yeah.
What was that like walking into that?
I mean, I was confident because I'd gone through some good training in the military and I was like in good condition, confident that I wouldn't quit, confident that I could, from an endurance standpoint, kind of hang in there. I wasn't afraid of getting hit, all those things. Where I lacked confidence was knowing that I'm not an exceptional athlete, not naturally anyway, knowing that I didn't know the game. Okay. I was small, I was old, I had these things that were voices in my head telling you not to do it. But I also had this other voice in my head telling me like, you don't want to live with regret. So you got to just go try. And I went in there with this mentality of if I get cut, I get cut, but I'm not going to give them any good reason to cut me. I'm going to go as hard as I can on every drill and show up early and train late and just whatever. And so eventually made the team. And I actually stayed in the Guard while I was in school. So I was still in the National Guard. I actually deployed in the summer times between going to school and all that. And then I would come back home, go to training camp and do the thing again, play football. Yeah. But once I made the team, I realized after the first season, like, I'm not going to get off the scout team, not at safety. I just didn't have the speed and the skill. So I started long snapping and found, a very thankless job that there's no glory in long snapping. And you screw up and you're the bad guy, but you can do it right forever and nobody really cares. And that was perfect for me because it was an opportunity to play. And so I ended up being a long snapper and, had an awesome time at school too. It was different though. There was like being older than the other kids in the locker room, the other men in the locker room, but they're young.
Yeah.
So there was challenges there, but I got over it.
In your 30s?
Yeah. I was 29 when I walked on. Okay. So I graduated at 33. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and you did well in college, academic All-American, Big 12 Sports Person of the Year. Is that when you realized that you could go pro? When did you realize that you could go pro?
I didn't realize I could go pro.
Well, you went pro. So.
I did. Well, I tried.
You did.
I got to play in a senior all-star game down in Charleston called the Medal of Honor Bowl. And the cool thing about this game was not only was it sponsored by the Medal of Honor Society, that it was one of those senior games. Like there's the Reese's Senior Bowl, which is the big one. There's the East-West Shrine game. There's these other games. I think there used to be the NFLPA Bowl. And this one was in the Medal of Honor Bowl. And it was mostly mid-round or undrafted players that would not be drafted but would try out with teams, right? Who were invited to play. And I got asked to be the long snapper for one of the teams. And I go out there and there's like a bunch of scouts at the practices from the NFL and coaches and management folks. And I got to meet with several of them and kind of talk about, they just asked about my journey and asked about, they said, look, you're a good long snapper. We've been watching you at practices and all that. You got to put some weight on, but you should go for it. And so I did. I just said, why not? Like same kind of thing. If I get cut, I get cut, which I eventually did.
Try.
But I got to,
never know unless you try. That's my mantra. Absolutely.
Yeah. That you don't want to live with that regret of just not trying. That's the worst one.
Absolutely. Well, and it worked. You signed a free agent contract with the Seahawks. You were 34 when that happened, right? I wanted to know how did your military background help you in the NFL?
Well, it's obviously different. You're not going to war, but you definitely know how to sacrifice. You definitely know sort of what it takes every day to maintain, to be as elite as you are able to be, because each person kind of has a different bracket, like a different ceiling, I should say. And so, it was just like, I think that was the biggest thing. Learning to long snap a football was similar to learning to shoot a pistol for me. It was the stance, the grip, what I was focused on, my aim point, how I squeeze the trigger on a pistol, how I release the ball on a long snap. They're obviously different, but if you break them down in those little pieces the same way, you can learn. I learned it the same way. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of that was super valuable, because I think a lot of people would start to do something like this, try a new skill, get quickly frustrated, or even frustrated after a couple of months and just give up on it because they're not seeing, they're not, they feel like they're not mastering it, you know what I mean? Or becoming proficient or whatever. And
practice makes perfect though. You just have to keep doing it.
Just stick with it. Yeah. You need to get your reps in, and they got to be good reps. You can't just like go out there and, sling bullets down range or just hike it between your leg without, some intention behind it. But you can learn to do anything. You really can. You may not be as good as someone who is naturally born with those talents, but you can get pretty good at anything if you just work at it.
Right. Well, then in 2015, you found a way to combine both your military background and football. You and Jay Glazer founded Emerging Vets and Players, your nonprofit, to support military veterans. Yeah. What made you come up with this concept? I love it.
Well, really, it was Jay's idea. We were we were at his house in his living room talking about, what I was going to do next. I'd just gotten cut from the Seahawks and I was trying to figure it out. And I was thinking about going back in the military, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was probably panicking a little prematurely. It was like, you don't need to know right now, but
it's tough though. You just, what I mean? That's hard.
It's all of a sudden and it's over,
Yeah.
And you don't want to let it go, but you kind of have to. And so Jay said, look, there's a lot of athletes in football, in the MMA world. And he's like, I'm sure other sports as well that struggle with the same things you're talking about. And I know a lot of vets do. Mm-hmm. So why don't we match these two groups up? Because they both, they've got mutual respect for one another. There's certainly like a similarity when it comes to everything but battle or playing a game, right? Like the preparation is very similar. You have a uniform that you identify with. You got a team and a locker room, camaraderie, and all that stuff. So that's the same. But obviously, we would never compare the battlefield to the ball field. Those are different places.
Absolutely, right.
And the career ends pretty young. I was 34, and that's old. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A lot of times, these guys are 24, and they're done with the military, or or they get, they're done with playing sports and they've peaked and feeling like you'll never be great again. And you got like, 70% of your life left or whatever. Like that's not a good feeling.
Yeah. It's good to have other people around you. Tell me a little bit about the organization, what you guys do, events that you guys have.
Yeah. So what we mostly do, we bring together combat vets and former professional athletes, and we help them find purpose and identity when they lose a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that in several different ways, but the main bread and butter of what we do is we meet up in the gym, whether it's weekly or monthly or whatever it is in the respective cities around the country. And we train together for about 40, 45 minutes. And then we huddle up afterwards, and it's peer-to-peer coaching, open forum, nothing's off the table. We encourage one another to be vulnerable and just sort of talk about what you got going on in your life. And everybody else in the group can sort of chime in and sort of, help with that if somebody's going through some type of struggle or needs, ideas or has a shared experience that they can kind of tap into and kind of rally around that. And then beyond that, it's really just building that community of vets and athletes all over the country. And we'll do different events. We'll go on hikes together, barbecue, go play golf, go to ball games, whatever it is, just opportunities for us to kind of get together and not let anybody be left behind. You know what I mean? So it's real simple, as far as, what we're doing. It really is just recreating that locker room. Because when you were in the military or you're playing sports, when the day's over, by and large, you're hanging out with those folks also off the field. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's just like your family. It's your second family. And when you lose that, it's weird. It's not like a regular job, where it's like go in, you do your 9 to 5, and you go home and you're like, I don't really hang out with those people. That's my work people, and this is my other family and group of friends. But in the military, it's like you leave, or in sports, you kind of leave home at 18, whether you're off to college to go play and beyond, or, join the military and go wherever they send you. And then coming back home is weird. It's not, you don't really feel like you fit in anymore, And so finding people that feel the same way that you do, that you can respect and sort of look up to and have that shared experience, I think that's super important.
And how many members do you have right now?
We've got several thousand. I think we've got around 4,000 or something like that. At least that was the prior numbers, which is really cool. Yeah. And we have a virtual chapter too, beyond our physical chapters. Right now we've got 8 full-fledged physical chapters and about 5 or 6 that are also in the works, and we're activating and doing some huddles and events with. But then we have a virtual chapter on Tuesdays that people can zoom in, like I'm doing with you right now, and make sure that and it includes a workout, so
cool.
they'll train. Yeah,
I did one of the workouts with you guys, by the way.
Nice.
Months ago, I was there. I had a blast. It was
awesome.
A great group of people.
Down in Phoenix, was it that one?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I was there at Arizona State.
Yep. It was fun to do that. But so where can our audience find you guys? What's the website? What's the social? Give them to me.
Vetsandplayers.org is a website. At Merging Vets and Players on Instagram, at Vets and Players on Twitter, or X, I should say. And and then I'm at Nate Boyer 37 on all socials as well. And we'd love people to reach out and engage with us. And that's super important, to make sure that you do the work too on the other end. And if you should reach out and connect with us, even if you don't feel like you need assistance or help, you could be helping somebody else in a big way.
Do you have any specific events that are coming up in the near future, next couple months? Anything for Super Bowl?
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. So we just had Veterans Day, so we just had some events around that, of course. But Army Navy game is December 14th out in DC. So we'll be out there for a few days, and we'll be partnering up with some other organizations and kind of doing some fun stuff. And then as we get into the new year, we've got a couple events I know for sure down in Jacksonville, which is pretty exciting. Our gala is at the Cosmo in Las Vegas on April 12th, and that's going to be really fun. So we'd love, put that on the calendar. But if you go to vetsandplayers.org, also there's an events page, because all the chapters around the country have all these different things going on.
Fabulous.
So I know, I don't want to miss them, but there's probably 20 things that I didn't name there from now until April. But so there's always stuff happening, and we're all over the country. So we'd love to.
Awesome.
Also, the Invictus games are coming up as well, right around the Super Bowl. We're going to be doing some stuff with them. So, and that's up in the Seattle and Vancouver area. So anyway,
all right,
it's endless.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Thank you
so much.
You're awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. All right, guys. Now it's time for comedian Todd Durham and his funny take on Week 11.
Warrior, Army Green Beret, and NFL long snapper. I also have credentials. You're looking at a Presidential Physical Fitness Award winner. I was playing December football in 1990. Okay? Your boy's got some cred myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Todd Durham, former Division III football player and current stand-up comic, which gives me permission to talk about NFL athletes. Biggest thing that happened in Week 11 is that the 1972 Miami Dolphins get to pop champagne. And I hear it every single year when an undefeated team loses. Ha ha ha, the 72 Dolphins are popping champagne again and celebrating their undefeated season. Isn't that quirky of the old 72 Dolphins? Listen to me. Do you know how colossally difficult it is to go undefeated in an NFL football season? To not lose a football game in the National Football League? Don Shula. He was born in 1930. Of the first 10 years of Don Shula's life were formed by the Great Depression. If you go to training camp and your head coach was born at the start of the Great Depression, here's what you don't get: water. Listen to this clip.
Before, when it was too hot, the Dolphins went swimming. With Shula, there was no water on the field for 7 years. They practiced 4 times a day, illegal in the NFL now.
I'm sorry, excuse me? The team did not get what? For how many years? 4 practices a day. I can't do 4 of anything a day. I tried to eat 4 sandwiches once. I did it, but it hurt. Those guys played football 4 practices a day and did not have water on the field for 7 years. You want to know what your team is doing right now? Your football team is below 500, and your team is practicing dance moves. If you want to be like the 72 Dolphins, your team needs to do 2 things: less dancing and less water at practice. The 1972 Dolphins prioritized the run game. They had 3 running backs. 2 of them went for 1,000 yards in that one season. They wanted you to feel pain. Larry Zonka, that he stiff-armed a guy and the guy just died. Just right there. Here you go. Death. Here you go. Also, leading with the crown of your helmet was just like encouraged. That's how hard football was in 72. They had to face Joe Namath in his prime twice. In their conference, juice. They beat O.J. Simpson in his prime twice. They had to face the Steel Curtain in the conference championships. In Pittsburgh, their main defensive lineman, his first name was Mean. When they played in Pittsburgh, some guy in the stands dressed like a gorilla. That's not even close to either mascot. Football in 1972 was hardcore, just like football was 1990, December of 1990. Okay? I'm also tough. So Don Shula and the gang, my hat goes off to you. And you know what? Have a sip of champagne. And at this point, honestly, have a sip of water, okay? Because the 7 years without water thing, it kind of scared me a little bit when I learned that about that. Get you some hydration.
All right. Thank you so much, Todd. We will see you next time. You can also find Todd on IG at Todd Marcel Durham. Okay. Shay Holland, HGTV designer to the athletes, gives us new information about who police think is targeting NFL and NBA players in a multi-state robbery crime ring. She gives us tips on how to help protect your home.
This is the moment moment, NBA star Bobby Portis says two men broke into his home.
I had a home invasion, and they took most of my prized possessions.
Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's multi-million-dollar mansions were hit during their October. There are striking similarities between all four burglaries.
It's frustrating. I can't get into too many details because the investigation's still ongoing.
They're traveling with their whole security teams, but that doesn't mean things don't happen.
Travis and girlfriend Taylor only discovered the burglary.
This could be anything. It could have been somebody that works at their house, who has access to their house.
The police chief adding that his department is in touch with investigators from each state and the FBI.
We're still unclear whether his pregnant wife and 2 kids were home at the time.
Obviously something that you don't want to happen to really anybody, but obviously yourself.
Hey, Shay, how are you?
Hi, Deb. I'm great. I love that interview you just did with Nate. Wow.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun. I love Nate. I met Nate a couple years ago at Super Bowl, and we've always kept in touch. So I thought with the Veterans Day and Salute for Service, he was a perfect person to bring on. So let's
since I was raised on Army base.
Oh yes,
it really.
I forgot.
Yeah,
you were.
Well, Sanders' dad was trying out for the NFL before the Army, so it's like, wow, I've heard the story before.
Yes. Well, something else that our audience might not know about you, before HGTV, you were a TV news investigator, a crime reporter, correct?
Yep, still doing dabbling in it, can't get away from it.
Yeah, so I feel like this story is right up your alley. What new information is FBI releasing about who may have targeted Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the NBA players?
Yeah, well, this story is just blowing up all over the place. And the new information is that, and it was reported by Sports Illustrated and others, that it is a South American burglary ring that is targeting them.
Oh, wow.
And we had this in LA. We have a special task force specifically they call them tourism burglaries. And they're people that come over from other countries on tourist visas and literally for the sole purpose of being part of the ring that is established. And you could tell that this was a very different operation from the start. These burglaries are so sophisticated because you can just imagine the security that NFL and NBA and MLB players have at their homes. And it was like nothing for these crime rings to go in and just do what they wanted to do in these homes. So that is the new information. The other information that came out that is good news, in all of the burglaries, no one was home. So that's part of the MO of the crime ring, is that somehow they're able to have gotten the schedules down to such a point that no one's home. Because I just kept thinking, like, Patrick Mahomes, with 2 kids, a pregnant wife, like, oh my gosh, can you imagine what?
Well, they were at the games, right? Thank goodness.
Yeah, they were. Thankfully, they were, and also that's part of the MO too, is that the players are generally playing at a game at that time, and so it makes sense that their security is often assigned to them, not necessarily just to their property. They're going with where is most of the risk, and the risk is personal injury or kidnapping to them, and so that's why these crime rings have been able to target them as well.
I mean, and we've talked a lot about security in your segments in the past, like players like Mahomes, they live in, like you said, the gated communities. How are these suspects still able to get this kind of access? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking that question. And my sense, being an investigative crime reporter, I'm like, these are definitely somehow inside jobs, meaning that they've been on these sites before, or they're getting information from somebody who's actually been on these sites. And the reason for that is these are very large mansions. Like Travis Kelce's place is 17,000 square feet. So they had to know exactly the layout of that home to be in and out so fast. All of these burglaries happened in less than 10 minutes, which is astonishing, and what they got away with. But the way that they're getting into gated communities really are intended just to keep the average person out. Somebody who's determined to get in can easily scale a wall to get in. If it was let's say a keypad, and the keypad, they get that number, then they can get in and out. In this case, they were also dressed as if they were workers. They were wearing full hazmat uniform suits. And so they were making sure that they weren't going to be identified too. And so that's how they're getting into the gated communities. And then my bet, and I'm not on site, I kind of wish I was. That's why I said, once an investigative crime reporter, I can't get it out of my bloodstream, because I'm like, if anyone wants to hire me, I will be on a plane tomorrow. Because my bet on this one is that not only did they probably were dropped off at a road near the gated community, scaled the wall because there's also a lot of property around these houses, but they're, it's wooded. They can just traipse through the woods unseen. And then, one of my first questions that came from me was, well, then where's the getaway car? And I'm like, there isn't really a getaway car, because what they're doing is taking the keys to a car that the athlete owns and probably getting away in their very own cars.
Wow.
And so there's a lot, isn't that? Yeah, because one of the top questions to me was, wait a minute, how are they getting away? And in some cases, they're carrying, I don't know how much these jerseys weigh, but they're carrying big loads of stuff, some of these purses and things like that. This is heavy loads that they were carrying. So I'm like, they're not walking a couple miles back to the getaway car. And so it's all going to be interesting.
Question. Like, what are they taking? Obviously, they're taking the car. What else are they taking?
Most likely. Now, that one I don't have proof on. That would just be me being an investigative reporter going down that route. Okay. But what we do know that they're taking, like Bobby Portis said in his case, the NBA star, they got everything, every memento he ever had, they wiped him out. And in Travis Kelce's case, we know they got at least his first Super Bowl jersey, $20,000, I think, in cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and things like that. So they're going for the really high-end things. Patrick Mahomes has not yet said, but my bet is they got all his Super Bowl stuff, because on the black market, that's money. So they're getting away with, people are saying, well, why are they taking this stuff? The memorabilia in particular, they can't sell it. Sure, they can. Other country. It doesn't have to be in America. Nobody in America is going to be stupid enough to have Patrick Mahomes stole a jersey in their wall.
Right.
I'm sorry.
True. I would think, Yeah. I would think it's trash, but who knows? Yeah.
No. And go ahead.
I was going to say how. But there's a bit of a lag, so that's why we're talking over each other. How do you prevent a robbery of this magnitude? Like, what would you do for your clients?
Yeah. So the number one thing I actually focus on in my design is security. Because of having been an investigative reporter, I am actually most concerned about my client's safety. And the reason is because I've seen this stuff so often. And so obviously we're going to go with, a smart home technology in my higher end clients. We're going to have all the cameras. We're going to have all of them indoors, outdoors. We're going to have biometric safes that are implanted into the walls to make them harder to take. But again, for me, my focus is more on, okay, I can do all that, but these kind of criminals can get around that easily. In fact, the authorities say in some of the cases, they definitely have Wi-Fi jammers that jam the signal. So then you're not able to, they have paint where they're blacking out the security cameras. So they know how to get around all of that high-tech security. That's not a problem for them. Plus they're in and out so fast within 5 to 10 minutes that the police really don't even have time to respond in a major city. This is not considered necessarily a high priority call. There's no other human whose life is in danger. Those take priority over these burglaries. And so even though it's all that, so a lot of the what I do is try to train my clients as well on, okay, let's design your home in such a way that we can make it as safe as possible. And I'll just give you a quick example because I know we're running out of time. I recently had a client wanted a home gym. We put it in the garage, but to get the ventilation, they kept opening the garage door, and I could, so anybody walking by could see them. And I said, we're going to need to either swap the garage door or we're going to need to do something because, as soon as that husband goes away and that wife is home alone and that garage door is up when she's working out, I already, like, my mind is going all kinds of places.
Right.
But that's more, something we can do on my side of the business, yes, but it also is going to have to be a behavioral change of that couple. So whenever I see something like that, and my clients will tell you, when I hear something in the neighborhood, I'm texting them, are your doors locked? Go tell me, right now.
Right,
let me know.
right.
Because we all get lazy too, and just don't do the small things that make it easier for us too.
Right. And just really fast, obviously not everybody can afford a designer. What are your tips, for kind of some other normal, regular people who can't afford, like, low cost, no cost ways people can protect their homes?
Yeah. Well, studies have shown that even just having a security camera sign out in your yard is actually a preventative measure, even if you don't have the camera. So, and those you can buy on Amazon for maybe a couple bucks or something. And then other things are just making sure, for example, that your bushes are trimmed down so that you don't give burglars a hiding place around your yard. You want to make sure, when you're traveling, we talked about this last week, you're not posting it on social media. Don't give away your schedule. We talked a little bit about as well, making sure it always looks like the home is lived in is the number one thing. So whether that's, your lights and your TV on a timer, don't put your shades all the way down and just leave them down when you're on vacation, if possible. Make that house look lived in, because these burglars, they're not murderers. They're not kidnappers. In fact, they do not want a confrontation with another human being. That's the last thing they want. They're in there, like we mentioned, for the jewelry, the cash, the memorabilia, the guns are huge. That's what they're there for. They're not there to have a confrontation with a human being. They will if they have to. And that's why I think the FBI is so intent on making sure they figure out who is doing this and stopping it pretty quickly, because it's simply a matter of time before there's a human-to-human interaction that could go very wrong for either the athletes, their families, or someone else.
Well, we will pray that does not happen. All right, Shay, thank you so much. Where can our audience find you?
Shay Holland Official on most social media.
Awesome. All right, Shay, we'll see you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, guys, let's get to the games this week. Week 12, coming to you from the South Point Casino. Sports betting expert Alex White is here to give you her best bet.
Over at the Blonde Blitz, week 12 in the NFL. I can't believe we're already here. I'm looking for a way to back the Kansas City Chiefs coming into this week off their first loss of the year to the Buffalo Bills. They're an 11-point favorite on the road at Carolina. The total has been bet up. It opened 41.5. It is now sitting at 43. I agree with that move, but instead of going over a worse number here at 43, we're going to target the first half. It's sitting at 21.5. Now, Carolina dead last in points allowed in the first halves, allowing an average of 19. We're going to have a fired up Kansas City team. I'm expecting them to have at least 17 going in to halftime. Now, Carolina, they're feeling good. They're feeling confident coming off a bye. They won 2 in a row with Bryce Young at quarterback and the 2 right before their bye week. They're averaging 10 points in the first half at home this year. So right there, 17-10, we'll get to 27. We're going over 21.5 for the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Best of luck to you this week. I can't wait to see you again next week. Deb, thanks so much for having me on again, the Blonde Blitz.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. We will see you next week. And obviously, we cannot talk sports betting without talking fantasy. Here's Commissioner Cooper with your best moves for Fantasy Week 12.
We're on a mission, guys. We're on a mission, guys.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Miss Deb. I'm doing great. Feeling a little blitzy tonight.
Woo! On the Blonde Blitz. I took your advice and I went with Goff and I did pretty well. So he did great. So I want to hear what's going on for this week.
Yes, ma'am. Last week I did hit some winners. Goff was great. Joe Mixon I had in the flex. He did great. Kind of some of my in-betweeners, though, didn't come up as good as I thought they were, like Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb was a little bit of a dud, if you will. But that's how it goes in fantasy. So let's move on to this week. And here's my ultimate DFS lineup. See, I lost the belt last week. So I had to show my trophy case off. Anyway, so this week, I like Bo Nix. He's been very consistent fantasy QB this season. And this week, good matchup for our guy with Las Vegas being 25th against fantasy QBs. Great value play. Kenneth Walker against the Cardinals at the running back spot. I spent a little more on him. Arizona 25th against running back. Seems like a good play there. Tyrone Tracy. I didn't think I'd ever get a giant on here, but they're playing the Bucs 27th against fantasy running backs. They got holes all over the place in Tampa. 6,000 is good value for him. Terry McLaurin against Dallas. I mean, we saw, what Dallas defense is pretty much about. So I like the Washington Commanders playing some good offense against the Cowboys. I went with Quentin Johnson, and the reason I did, I wish I had a little more money. Ladd McConkey's a good play. Any receiver you have that plays the Baltimore Ravens, put them in. They're dead last against fantasy receivers, so it's a great play. I never also thought I'd have a Chicago Bear receiver on this list, but I do because Minnesota is 31st against fantasy receivers, so pick your poison. Keenan Allen's a little bit lower, so is Romeo Dunze, so you can kind of build your lineup on one of those guys, and hopefully they hit for you. In the tight end position, I have, Dallas Goedert this week. Dallas Goedert going against the Rams, 25th against fantasy tight ends. And we had a conversation about this on my show. Going with your flex play at tight end is a really good play because most of the time they're pretty low value. But this week, I brought up a big value one, Travis Kelce. Carolina is 31st against fantasy tight ends. Lick your chops, Miss Taylor, because your boy is going to have a good night on against Carolina, or good day, I should say. And then I went with the Texans D. Texans D is really good, just in case anyone didn't know. And the Titans offense, guess what? Dead last overall in the NFL. So I like the play there indeed. So there you go. It's the ultimate DFS lineup.
All right, I've got Dallas Goedert. He's actually benched right now. I have to take him off the bench because I definitely wanted to play him. I wanted to play him last week and I just forgot.
It's a good week this week. I even forgot a fantasy defense one time. So trust me, it happened.
Yeah, I feel like the defense, you don't get that many points, but yeah, losing Dallas Goedert, I was like, no, why did I forget? Anyway, let's do some picks. Ben Troop, get in here.
Let's do it.
Hey.
Ben, I think got some internet issues going on.
Oh, yeah. I feel like we're a little glitchy tonight. So, hi, Jason.
Hi.
How are you? Oh, good. First up, we've got the Lions versus the Colts Sunday at 1 p.m. What do you got?
All right. Well, Colts all time lead this series 22-20. Believe it or not, last time they played was in 2020. Lots of 20s in this one. Colts won 41-21. Colts have actually won five out of the last 6, but they ain't winning this one. Go ahead and count the Lions, one of the hottest teams in the league right now. There's no way in the Hades I would put the Colts ahead of the Lions right now, although played a good game against the squandering Jets last week. But, just not enough for this Detroit team.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. The Colts face a huge uphill battle, with the Lions. Like you said, they did manage to beat the Jets last week, but I mean, everybody's beating the Jets at this point, I feel like. So I do like what I saw on Anthony Richardson on the field last week. I think benching him did some good, but they are playing the Lions, king of the jungle right now. And yeah, the Lions are favored by 8. We're going Lions. All right, Cardinals versus Seahawks Sunday at 4:25 p.m. What are you thinking?
Okay, so all-time Seahawks 27-22-1 against the Cardinals. Last season, the Seahawks swept the Cardinals 21-20 and 20-10. Again, a lot of 20s. I don't know what's going on. You want to play some 20s tonight in the lottery, you might be all right. They've won 5 in a row in this series. However, I feel like the way this Cardinal team is starting to click. The Seahawks, to me, are up and down. They are playing. They did beat the 49ers last week, which is an impressive win. But the 49ers are not the 49ers we saw last season. So to me, I like the Red Hot Cardinals. I think they come into Seattle and they pick up 1 against Seattle.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, Arizona leads the NFC West right now, 6-4 with a 6-4 record. Definitely in the driver's seat to win the division. The Seahawks are coming off a great last second upset win over San Francisco. But I don't think they can do it 2 times in a row. I just don't. I do love Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's had a breakout season, and the Cardinals' offense is getting better as the season goes. But I think the Cardinals have this one. So
I like it. I'm with you.
Awesome. All right, let's do 49ers versus the Packers Sunday at 4:25 p.m.
All right, Packers lead this series all-time 38-34-1. The last 2 meetings have been in the NFC divisional playoffs. How crazy is that? Last year, 49ers won 24-21. And in 2022, they won 13-10. So obviously that's 2 in a row for them. But again, I'm going to go off of the tradition, I guess, if you will. And I like Green Bay. They're at home, coming off a win against the Bears, a barely win over the Bears. And like I mentioned earlier, 49ers are not the team that they were last season. They've had some definite big struggles. I can definitely see Green Bay at home taking it to the 49ers.
Yep, and I agree with you. San Francisco's 5-5. Packers are 7-3. San Fran's coming off an upset loss. Green Bay's coming off a last-second win. Green Bay's won 4 of the past 5 regular season meetings with San Francisco. QB, though, Brock Purdy, his right shoulder, he's kind of day-to-day. Nick Bosa's questionable as well with a hip injury. That does scare me. But I do love that CMC is back. He's back with a vengeance. He looked amazing last week. I think Green Bay takes this. I think it's going to be a really close game. So, but also Green Bay's also favored by 2.5. So I think they get that. All right, let's move on to Eagles versus Rams Sunday at 8:20 p.m. What are you thinking for this one?
Well,
we're both Eagles fans, so I know what we're thinking.
Yeah, you already know what I'm going to say. No,
exactly.
But the Eagles lead the all-time series 23-20-1. Last time they played was last year, and the Eagles won 23-14. I said the Lions were one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Eagles ain't too shabby neither. And really could be if they, there's a couple that loss or two could have really turned the other way. They've had injuries themselves and right now are fully healthy. I like them in this matchup going into LA in the dome on the turf. Got a lot of fastness on there. I like the Eagles in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles as well. I absolutely have to, obviously. I will be at this game. I'm very excited. I'm actually missing my Thanksgiving with my family for this game, but I don't care. I do love the Rams when they are not playing the Eagles. I feel like our defense is on fire right now, led by, DC Vic Fangio. Jalen Hurts leads the league in total touchdowns. Saquon Barkley leads the league in rushing yards, and A.J. Brown leads the lead in receiving yards. I hope to see that at SoFi on Sunday. So it's going to be an Eagles home game. I know thousands of people that are flying in. There's a ton of tailgates. It's going to be an Eagles takeover in LA this entire weekend, and just a more balanced team. They're going to take.
I just wanted to mention while we were talking about Eagles and the Rams, I said I got a text from the wife said, be very careful. So yeah, there you go.
I love it. Thank you, wife. The Eagles are also favored by 3. All right, let's do one more. Ravens versus Chargers Monday Night Football. I'm as excited for this game as I am the Eagles Rams, by the way. I might actually try to go to this one as well. What are your thoughts, Jason?
Well, this is a really good one here. I like this a lot, actually. Ravens, all-time 9-6 lead the series. They did play last year. Ravens won 20-10. They won 2 in a row in the series. And, man, if this was a couple weeks ago, I would pick the Ravens, no problem. But I believe, the Chargers have been sneakily good all season. Nobody's really been talking about them. But now as the season starts to wear on and the win record starts to rise, people are starting to notice they have a really good defense where the Ravens have a putrid defense. I'm actually going to pick the Chargers in this one. I can see them at home on a Monday night winning, although it's not going to surprise me if the Ravens win, trust me. But I do see a scenario, the Chargers at home, they have the better defense. I could see them pulling this out. I'm going to pick the Chargers.
All right. I don't disagree with you. I am actually going to go Ravens, but I would not be shocked if the Chargers, take the upset here because the Ravens are favored by 3. I'm excited to see the Harbaugh brothers face off. And I love the fact that the Chargers are in 2 primetime games in 2 weeks. Both teams right now are firmly in the mix for AFC playoff race. Chargers are 7-3. Ravens are 7-4. Chargers had a great game against the Bengals. It was neck and neck, old school back and forth football. I loved it. I feel like this will be the same exact game. So you've got, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry versus Justin Herbert, and rookie Lad McConkey, who I adore. He's having a great season. Yeah, I'm going to go Ravens, but I secretly want the Chargers to win because I live in LA and I'm probably going to be at this game too. So, all right, guys, that's it for the Blonde Blitz this week. Today's show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code BLONDE and we'll double your deposit up to $100. If you like tonight's episode, please subscribe and you can follow us on socials at the Blonde Blitz. Jason, thank you. Everyone, Nate Boyer, thank you. Shay, thank you. Alex, Todd, yay. Let's go football forever. Bye, guys.